Good morning all, CamelbackTrading.org coming to you this Thursday morning, January 18th. We're looking at Window Trader's market profile of the ES and the NQ. So before we get to today's action, I want to go over two things. One in the ES, one in the NQ. NQ, how the profile gave us a pretty good idea what might happen late in the day. And in ES, in the broader context, what might have happened coming into today because of the action over the last 4 days. And how the profile is a good guide to that. Let's start with ES first. We talked about how we've gapped lower 5 times. Now yesterday's gap held, but barely. More importantly, we attempted to go trend down 5 times so far this year. 5 times we failed. Now, we have attempted to go trend up 8 times, only 1 have held. But here's where the context comes in. The market's been trying to push lower so far this year. So those upside trend days, I'm not surprised didn't hold. But if selling was truly stronger, not only should the gaps have held, but the trend days down should have held. Very important. And what's the result of it, at least for right now this morning? They're finally giving it up, right? The market's been short now. We've been pushing lower, and now they're giving it up. Okay, now let's go to NQ. How yesterday's intraday action differed a lot from ES's, and why what happened late in the day didn't surprise me. First, ES spent the day lowering their point of control. NQ spent the day raising it. Very important. ES took out both sides of the IB. NQ never took out the IB low. Not only didn't they take it out, they ended up with an afternoon pullback, whereas ES attempted to go trend down, even though it failed. ES had a poor high, which held. NQ never did. We talk about context. Even though they were both down about 0.5% yesterday. So if you look at a chart or you look at the indices, say, oh, they didn't, they were the same. They were far from being the same yesterday, and that resulted in a nice price spike for NQ. Now ES pushed up a lot also, but never took out the day's high again. Okay, so NQ not only has a possible gap to lean on this morning, they also have their price spike from M period. Another interesting thing, we had those 9Y point of controls from the other day. It was going to be a downside. We opened below it, it became an upside destination. Well, right now, it could become a downside destination again. Now, ES has stopped right at it, but NQ is above it. Those don't go away. At some point, those naked pox, 9 wide or more, should get hit. But that's interesting, how they keep going from downside to upside destinations. Triple Q is only $2 away from their all-time high. So again, everybody calling for the demise of the market. Remember, yes, the daily was down yesterday. It's now back to balance, as long as we take out yesterday's high. But the more important one, which we have talked about, are the longer term. The monthly is up, and the weekly is just in balance. We have to see how the weekly comes out of that balance. So I hope those things really help get you thinking about how the market works and why. As far as today. Now again, we have not had an upside gap yet this year. This would be our first. Right now it's 15 handles, so it's a pretty sizable gap. It's also going to be an island reversal gap, right? Where we gapped lower yesterday, held it, and then we gap open today. If, big if, that gap holds, that's very powerful for the bulls. Okay? Now NQ filled their gap yesterday, so it will not be the same thing. Righty, on the other hand, would also be an island reversal gap because they didn't fill their gap from yesterday, and they're looking to gap higher today. All right, so game plan. Game plan early. We're coming back into balance, taking out yesterday's high. Again, we have 70 minutes to go, so we have to make sure we do end up gapping higher. Where would I look for a long? Be comfortable for a long. I like some sort of a pullback. Okay, again, I don't like chasing, but at some point I'd like some kind of a pullback. I'm not exactly sure where I would look for it. At this point, if you're in my room, you'll know, to take a long and then use maybe the gap fill, not as an out necessarily, but to add. But that's only if we get the overnight high first. If we gap higher, do not get the overnight high first. I'll still look for a long on the downside. But if we fill that gap, I'll be very, very quick to get out of a long with any acceptance whatsoever into M's range. Because you have a 15 right overnight pop that I'll carry forward, and then you'd have the overnight low if we don't get the overnight high. Very important. Would I look for a short up here? Not necessarily, unless we really rallied hard pre-market against the previous balance high, which I don't see us getting that high prior to the opening. Again, just really early plays. I know this one is a little longer for the morning, but I hope it helps. Here's your chart, right? This is healthy. We needed consolidation. You don't go up 9 weeks in a row and think it's going to be healthy to keep doing that. Well, we have a 5-week consolidation. So if we come out of it to the upside, we got some fresh buyers in the ball game. And on the daily, we finished with a nice candle yesterday. I said one day doesn't make a market below the 20. We pressed a couple of times. We finally closed below it. But as of right now, we're trying to get above it. And I would probably encompass this whole thing now as a balance. Okay, I would use now January 8th's low and January 12th's high as an 8-day balance, including today. Good luck trading today. Thanks for liking and subscribing to this channel, and we'll recap at 4 p.m.